I'll go get the military experience, right? And that's what I did.
With the intention of doing a couple of years coming back and being a cop, but then
correct.
Then the green machine got a hold of you.
Yeah, oh yeah. I don't dictate when people are born and when they die, right? Those guys were going to pass away anyways because that was when they were scheduled to pass. We essentially had to walk around and pick up body parts, right? As I'm doing that, that's when reality started to sink in. Because had that been just a couple of inches over, my entire face would have been gone.
Yeah.
Now I get to take it to the enemy, right? This is what it's all about. Now it's about to get real. Like this is where it starts. Like this is where my revenge tour begins. Dude, the group Sergeant Major came into my shop and told me, you need to get Jay Dorleus out of here right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. Spent 20 years on active duty, 4 of which as a combat engineer in the Army, and then went through all the selection process for Green Berets, Special Forces, and spent the subsequent 14 years doing that. Two Iraq deployments as a combat engineer, and then 4 to Afghanistan as a Green Beret, which we're obviously going to dive into. He's the host of the Green Beret Chronicles. He's the dude playing the dude disguised as the other dude. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Jay Dorleus.
Hey, what's up, Mike? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
That was an awesome intro.
Well, got to throw something out there for. I will say, like that's since the inception of the show has typically been my thing. Admittedly, to the folks watching, I've slacked in the last year. You know, it's like there's some guests, I draw a blank and I'm like, fuck, I have nothing smart ass to say. You know, usually I do, but there's occasions where I'm like, fuck, I'm drawing a blank. I got nothing. Maybe I'm getting old. I don't know. Maybe I need to take more fish oil or ginkgo biloba. Who fucking knows? But
that was a good one, though. Yeah. That was a good one.
What's the last full book that you read?
So last book I read is Blue Ocean Strategy. It is a business book. And it's because I'm trying to figure out this social media thing, right? And the book talks about blue oceans and red oceans, right? Red oceans, for example, as we're speaking about social media, within the social media space, you have all these different podcasts and all these different shows, and everyone's like sharks just eating each other, right? Turning the water blood, so red ocean. As opposed to blue oceans, which is what I'm trying to do, where I take social media, I take my platform, and I do something completely new that's never heard of. And that's how you create blue oceans, right? A completely different space that's not habited by anybody, right? Yeah, so that's what I'm currently reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking before we sat down about, the difficulties of navigating social media as an entrepreneur, and especially, not that we're old, but we're not fucking 19, you know, and so it's like the generation of young adults that have grown up with it and you know, I would say are masters at navigating it and taking full advantage of it. Like they just have a leg up on us, you know.
Oh yeah.
And it can be tough, no doubt about it. Do you have a favorite quote?
Favorite quote is, and I can't remember who said it, but the corners you cut today are the bodies you carry tomorrow. And I would always say this to my guys, especially when we're training, because I want them to understand, like, the way you train is the way you're going to fight. So if you're slacking off at training, when you get down range, that's what your mind's going to revert back to.
Yeah.
And that's how you're going to perform.
Yeah.
And if you're doing shit work, then you can get people killed down range.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's and that's really kind of the backbone of the job, you know, so that's great. What's something you wish you were better at? Social media?
Social media, man, believe it or not. Social media and interviewing people. So I've been watching a shit ton of Oprah.
Yeah.
Trying to
She's
figure
a fucking
out,
master at it, no doubt about it.
Try to figure out how to be a better interviewer and not interrupt people when they speak.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the toughest when it's somebody that is like you know, and that's something we'll probably both, we probably both struggle with. The more common background that I have with a guest, the harder it is to just sit there and shut up, because it's like, well, I've got this experience that's similar to that, whatever. So it's a challenge, but one thing that's helped me is just always remembering that, this show is about them, not me. There's times where I'm sure I interrupt or talk more than I should right now, as an example. But it's, just if you kind of just always think of like, hey, this is their story, not mine.
Yeah,
just let them tell it. If time travel were possible, where and when would you go and why?
I would go back to 9/11.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would travel back to 9/11. People might think I'm a fucking weirdo, but we're different to begin with as far as special operations dudes, right? And I'm like, man, if time travel was possible, I would travel back right before Ride 11, and I would hunt those fucking dudes down and fucking kill them before they conduct that act.
Yeah.
Because for me, that's when it all changed.
Yeah, agreed. It's impossible to imagine, but it's hard to even try to imagine what the world would be like had that not happened. It changed the entire world forever, So It is interesting thinking of it in that regard of like, we're going back to when bin Laden was an infant, and taking him out then, or, or Hitler, different prominent evil figures, and again, it's like, what would the world be like? It's hard to even know, but, EDC, what are you rocking most of the time?
I have a, M&P Shield, Smith & Wesson. Yeah. Any given days I have that on me, and then I always carry a pocket knife.
Yeah. Do you have a preference knife-wise?
Benchmade.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a preference ammo-wise, or does it depend on what you're doing?
9mm.
I mean, not just caliber, but brand. Like, are you
brand. To be honest, it all depends on what the military has available.
Yeah, so mostly ball ammo?
Yeah. I like to keep it simple, man.
Yeah, not rocking any nasty hollow points?
No.
What's your morning routine look like, starting with what time do you get up and what's the first 3 hours of the day look like?
Awesome question. So I wake up at 4:30 every morning. For whatever reason, like I can go to sleep at midnight. At 4:30 I'm up. And I think it's just being conditioned from being in the military. So wake up at 4:30. I go to my office, and I'll write for about 2 hours. Once I'm done writing, typically my kids they'll walk into the office because they're awake. So I stop writing, go downstairs with the kids, hang out with them, make them breakfast, and then I get my son and my daughter ready to go to school. And then I drive my son to school, drop him off, and then I'll go to the gym for about 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then, because for me, the gym is like my outlet. That's why I go to blow off steam. I don't even see that as a workout. I just see it as, like I'm having a good time.
Yeah. A therapy session almost.
Exactly. Get done with that, and then I'll start work for the day, whatever that entails.
Do you not eat in that first 3 hours?
No, so I don't eat in the morning. I don't eat until I'm done with everything that I'm doing. So typically around 11:30ish.
Yeah.
That's when I have my first meal.
Yeah.
I just drink a shit ton of water.
Yeah. And that works better for you, obviously.
Yeah. Energy wise, yeah.
Yeah. Guys, real quick, I've recently launched Patreon for the all-inclusive mic drop experience. This goes above and beyond just ad-free. Yes, you are getting ad-free episodes, but you're getting before and after bonus footage of myself and the guest in studio, in many instances outside of the studio, doing jiu-jitsu, dog stuff, car, motorcycle, recovery, fitness, lifestyle, all kinds of different things. All the different things that I have going on are included in that Patreon page. We're releasing content multiple times a day, every single day. And I want to offer that to you guys. Just go to my Patreon page. The link is in every description or any platform that I'm on, and come enjoy that experience with me. That content is for you guys. It's what you want to see. It's about you. It's about what world you want to peek into in terms of all the different things that I have my hands in. And we're bringing that to you guys just for you. And I want to take one quick second to just say thank you to everybody who already has signed up. without your support, we couldn't do what we do for you. So thank you to you guys, and I look forward to seeing you in there. What are the two key components for canine success? That's effective training and proper nutrition. Fueled by Team Dog brings those two components to your family and best friend. The perfect nutritional balance that results in a higher mental acuity, energy, overall vitality, and even an improved appearance. Every product you will find in my company's store was born from the battlefield and not from the boardroom. Let my life's work help you become your dog's hero. Where are you originally from?
All right, so I was born in Haiti.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, shit, I'm curious to get your take on what's going on there now with the barbecue, dude. Like, holy fuck.
Yeah. I planned for that because I had a feeling you might ask me about that. Yeah. I was born in Haiti, and then I stayed with my grandmother for about 10 years before I moved to the States. My mother and my father, they migrated to France at first. Worked over there, bust their butts, and then they made it to the U.S. Once they got to the U.S., then they sent for me and my younger brother. 8 of us total.
Wow.
I'm the third oldest. And then once I came to the States, 1994, as the 82nd was getting ready to invade Haiti. You know what I mean? I came stateside, Brooklyn, New York, stayed there till after high school, and then I joined the military afterwards. But I always tell folks, born in Haiti, raised in New York, essentially. Yeah.
You spent the first 10 years in Haiti, you said?
First 10 years.
Can you describe just like what a normal day was like in that time period of what you can remember?
Yeah, so growing up in Haiti was difficult, man, because, again, growing up with my grandmother, that within itself was difficult because my mom and my dad were removed. And it was me and my younger brother, because it's weird how they had us in pairs, right? So we always had somebody to play with that's about a year removed, right? So I'm a year removed from my younger brother. So it was him and I in Haiti. My older brother and my older sister, they were in France with my mom and dad, and then the rest of the kids were born in the States, in New York. But typically we would wake up, we had school, right? So we would go to school, and then after that, we would just play. But playing in Haiti is different than playing in the States, right? We would play marbles was a big one. We play soccer, and then we just play with rocks because there was no television, believe it or not. First 10 years of my life, I didn't know what a TV was until I got to the States.
Yeah. So none of your friends had it, like they didn't exist within your circle of...
No, it didn't exist where we were, because you had Port-au-Prince, which is the capital, but we grew up on like the country, essentially, where there was no electricity, there was no television, there was nothing.
Yeah.
It was just us running around after school and just playing soccer and throwing rocks at each other, playing with sticks, just whatever imagination could put together. But yeah, that was pretty much.
At that time where you were at, was violence something that that was a threat, or that you lived with, or had to accommodate on a day-to-day basis?
No, so believe it or not, when I was growing up in Haiti, there was no violence. And it's, now granted, around that time, there was still a coup going on. So the current president, which was Aristide, he was pushed out of Haiti. He was in the States. So there was a lot going on around the capital. But where I grew up in the country, like the village essentially did a really good job keeping all that stuff away.
Yeah.
So I remember 1994, like I remember vividly like looking up and seeing helicopters hovering above. But again, I didn't know what that meant. Later on, come to find out that was the 82nd getting ready to invade. But I don't remember, like, as far as violence go, like there was no violence within the village.
Yeah. What was the house that you grew up in? What was that like?
So again, my grandmother, very strict, and she had to be, right? Because me and my little brother, we were little shits. So grew up in a very strict household, from Haiti all the way up to the States. You know what I mean? So they made sure that we had chores. You know what I mean? Even though it's Haiti, there's still stuff that we had to do within the village, whether it's care for the crops, water the crops, making sure we clean bathrooms, dishes. We had to do all of that because they wanted to ensure that we had that that discipline at a very young age, right? And that carried over to when I got to the States.
Yeah.
So yeah, upbringing until till this day, I don't think I've ever cried. I take that back. The only time I cried was when my grandmother passed away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because she was, at least for the first 10 years of my life, you know, essentially my mother, right? Because my real folks were in France trying to make it happen.
Yeah. Did you have any connection or correspondence with your parents at that time?
No, so they would send like letters and they would send money.
Yeah.
But as far as speaking with them on the regular, no.
Yeah.
No, we didn't.
And that's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
You said you had no electricity growing up.
No.
So are you using like candles at night for light, or?
Yeah, so we had what's lanterns essentially with wax.
Oh, okay.
But instead of having a candle in there, it was like a piece of cotton soaked in oil, right? That's what we would use for light source.
Yeah. And obviously no refrigerator. So are you eating?
No, so no refrigerator. So we mainly live off the land, right? And I'll share this with you because I think it'll put a lot of things in perspective as to why me personally, like I love this country so much, right? Because of what it's done for us. Like I remember growing up in Haiti and eating dirt. Like that was a regular thing. Like till this day, you know what I mean? Like there's stores that sell dirt. And being here and thinking about it, you know, I'm like, man, I used to eat dirt as if that was the norm. I'm talking about like a piece of dirt, we would add salt to it and add other ingredients to it, and we would eat that as if that was food.
Just to put something in your stomach?
Just to put something in my stomach,
wow.
Right? Like that's what my brother and I grew up eating.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, like that's not normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it would be, I think all guys in our shoes, a lot of men, period, when they're raising their children, have those almost conflictive moments of, you have no fucking idea how good you, like, it's got to be 10x for you to be like, motherfucker, I used to eat dirt.
Yeah. I mean, it is, man. And I try to, you know, like instill certain things in my kids. You know, number one, make sure they're grateful for just food on the table, right? Like I don't go to the extent of making sure like they eat every single piece of food, but I'm sitting there and they're complaining about, oh, mom and dad, I want this instead of this. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, somewhere in this world, there is a kid eating dirt. How do I know this? Because I used to be that kid.
Yeah, wow.
So eat your food, be grateful.
Yeah. How often would you eat meat, would you say?
I would say Sundays. Yeah. So Sundays and Saturdays were like your big traditional meals where my grandmother and her kids and the villagers would get together and we would eat like a full-blown meal. But the rest of the time, cornmeal, a lot of vegetables, like I said, milk, and then just dirt. Yeah. You know what I mean? Wow. So when I came to the States, I was like sticks and bones with the extended belly.
Yeah.
Like,
I can imagine.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, so I guess moving into that, I mean, how obviously there's a culture shock. Do you remember what was going through your mind, and can you walk us through the kind of the mental path that you took as you came to America?
Yeah, so I didn't want to come.
Really?
Right? Because like Haiti was my home, right? That's what I'd known for like 10 years. Yeah. So my mom and dad were in New York City at that point, and they sent for us, right? So they didn't travel to Haiti to come grab us. They worked through the airlines, and they had someone from Haiti take us to the airport. I was 10, my younger brother was 8. And then we were handed off to a stewardess who took us through the process and got us on the plane. So we got on the plane and we're, making our way to the States. And I remember like my younger brother was just crying. Like he was he was devastated. Yeah. I don't know if it's because he was scared or because he didn't want to leave. But at that point, my entire like mindset was like whatever I'm feeling is irrelevant at that point because I got to be a big brother to my little brother. You know what I mean? So yeah, till this day I always joke around that I don't joke around. It's a fucking fear. Like I hate flying. Yeah, and it's because of a really bad turbulence incident that took place on the flight. Oh wow! Like I didn't fly until I flew off to basic training. Right, everywhere that I had to go, I just drove. Yeah. And it was so bad to where like my little brother was getting ready to fucking jump out of his seat and start running around. So I had to hold them down, but it was really, really bad turbulence coming from Haiti to New York City. But once we got here, I thought we were visiting. Like, I was like, yep, mom and dad, nice to see you guys. Like, when are we going back to Haiti? Yeah. Right. And then found out we were staying. And then I quickly had to get used to things. But my mom and dad didn't have time to ease us into it. They didn't have time to make sure that we knew how everything worked, because they're immigrants in New York City, you know, living in a small apartment. They still have to provide. They still have to pay rent, like just your basic necessities. So they had to work. So my mom and dad was working. I got to New York on a Friday. Probably the next week I was in school. Oh. Right? Didn't speak English. Didn't know the customs. Didn't know the courtesies. I was just tossed in the deep end to essentially figure it out. Yeah. Right? And we did. But yeah.
The man, that's such a wild journey. It makes me have a million questions. I mean, was it awkward being around your parents after not having been? Was it almost like they're strangers?
It was. Yeah. It was because again, we didn't grow up with them. Yeah. So, but it's still one of those things. Like, they're still my parents, but it took me time. Well, my younger brother and I, it took us time to get used to them. Same thing with my older siblings, right? Because we hadn't seen them for like 10 years. Yeah. So it took us time to get used to them, and I would say it took about 3 months, and then we slowly started to ease back into it. Yeah.
So joining school, I guess a couple of things. I mean, joining school, having electricity. In Haiti, did you have running water?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But so now you're in an apartment, you're in a big city, like it's the opposite of the environment that you just came from.
I remember it smelling fucking weird. I was like, man, it just smells so different. Yeah. The air itself, like the fucking constant noise in the city. Yeah. It was definitely it definitely took me a while to get used to it.
Yeah. Did as soon as you landed, in terms of going from having very little to eat all week, going to, I'm assuming, having quite a bit more to eat, did you guys find yourself just like, holy shit, like you're at a buffet all the time?
Yeah, well, I remember eating 3 meals a day now, and I was like breakfast, lunch, dinner, like it was like ritual. Like we always ate those, and I just remember like, holy shit, like this is awesome, right? Like I can eat and not have to worry about not having enough to eat or eating dirt. I can go to the fridge and get whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. So it was definitely a culture shock, and it's something that I learned to appreciate as I was going through it.
Oh, I bet. Was there a kind of first like American thing that you ate that you were just like, what the fuck is this?
Pizza.
But did you like it when you did?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're like, the fuck?
It's like, what is this thing? It's got meat on it. It's cheese is melting. That's why, like, till this day, like, if it's not New York pizza, like, I'll eat it, but I won't be satisfied. Just because that was my first, and I'm like, I fell in love with it. Yeah.
What makes New York pizza different and better?
The grease, man.
It's just greasy as fuck.
It's so greasy, and it just tastes so good. And I like how thin it is. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I've heard the bagels, and I don't know if this is total bullshit or not, but there's something about the water in New York City that they use in the dough. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the same with bread. Maybe it's total bullshit. Who knows? But
maybe.
Man, it's so wild. You spoke French, I assume?
Yeah. So
do you still?
I do. Yeah. I do. In Haiti, we speak Haitian Creole, which is a bootleg version of French, right? It's just essentially it's French without all the conjugations. Okay. So I spoke fluid Haitian Creole, and then when I went to the Q course, I took French, but again, it's the same language. You know what I mean? Like, I can go to France right now or any French-speaking country and speak French just fine, just because I have that Haitian Creole background. Yeah. Right.
Would they notice an accent that it's the Haitian Creole? Like, would they be able to pick that up? Like, if they were a native French speaker?
Probably.
Be like, oh, you're from...
Yeah. I'm from Mali or Haiti or... Yeah.
I mean, no different than, like, people in Georgia speak different than here, than California, than Wisconsin.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So 3 languages: Haitian Creole, French, and then English, of course.
The Mic Drop podcast is proud to be sponsored by American Hartford Gold. These days, the economy is all over the place. Interest rates are crazy. Inflation is nuts. A lot of times it's tough to trust the government. What I will say is that having, some sort of liquidity on hand, i.e. cash, gold, et cetera, is important. The problem with cash, and I'm speaking from personal experience, is that whether it's 500, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, however much cash you want to keep on hand, be it in a safe or what have you, is that let's say it's $1,000. You put that in a safe. Well, 5 years from now, if you're hanging on to that for emergencies or whatever, 5 years from now, that's still going to be worth 1,000 American dollars. $1,000 in gold 5 years from now is going to be worth more than that. If you look at the historical trend of gold since it's been kept track of in the United States and people have been keeping it on hand, it's gone up. You really can't go wrong with it. And I think it's a good hedge against inflation in that manner. American Hartford Gold is committed to help you by bringing you the truth of that. They have a 5-star rating from thousands of reviews and an A+ from the Better Business Bureau. They can show you how to help protect all your savings and retirement accounts. If you don't want to keep physical gold, you can do gold IRAs, or you can have it delivered to your doorstep. It can be set up from a traditional IRA, a 401k, or a thrift savings plan. Really, however it is that you want to incorporate gold into your portfolio, whether it's a significant portion of your portfolio or just having some liquidity at home that's not losing money every time inflation goes up, which it continues to do. Call them now at 855-967-1413 to see if you can qualify for up to $15,000 of free silver on your first order. That's 855-967-1413, or text DROP, D-R-O-P, all caps, to 65532. Again, that's 855-967-1413, or text DROP to 65532. American Hartford Gold will hook you up. Message and data rates may apply. Individual results may vary. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision. As you guys know, sleep is a huge component to recovery and really all aspects in life, and it's something that a lot of us have struggled with, for a lot of our lives, frankly. As you know, I've been a big proponent of Beam, which is a hot cocoa that you drink before you go to sleep, and it's helped tremendously in terms of hours of sleep maintained as well as the quality of sleep. Today, my listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder, which is their science-backed hot cocoa for sleep, and it's got no added sugar. Better sleep has never tasted better. As you know, other sleep aids can cause next-day grogginess and just make you feel crappy, but Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, and apigenin, also melatonin, to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling refreshed. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/micdrop, all caps, all one word, and use code MicDrop, all one word, all caps, at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/MicDrop and use code MicDrop for up to 40% off. There's not much worse than a t-shirt that doesn't fit or wears out after you wear it 2 or 3 times. I'm a big fan of True Classic t-shirts. They're a great sponsor of the Mic Drop podcast, and for a limited time only, you can get 25% off when you shop now with my exclusive link at trueclassic.com/MicDrop, all caps, all one word. It's designed to accentuate your best features. True Classic shirts are tailored for a perfect fit. Snug in the arms and chest with just the right amount of room in the midsection. The best part is that True Classic sells premium products at an affordable price. You can get their best-selling t-shirts, hoodies, jeans, and more in 3, 6, and 9 packs. So if you're ready to upgrade your closet, shop now with my exclusive link at trueclassic.com/MicDrop and save up to 25% off your first order. Discover the perfect blend of summer vibes and timeless elegance with True Classic. Shop now and elevate your summer wardrobe with ease. And I will tell you, these t-shirts do fit really, really well. There's a lot of crappy t-shirts out there. The free golf t-shirt or whatever you get, from advertisers that are trying to give you stuff and they go for the cheapest crap, whatever. This stuff is the exact opposite of that. And I will say True Classic fits amazing. I love their products. And I swear by them. So if you're ready to upgrade your closet, shop now with my exclusive link at trueclassic.com/MicDrop and save up to 25% off your first order. Discover the perfect blend of summer vibes and timeless elegance with True Classic. Shop now and elevate your summer wardrobe with ease. When you started school, not speaking the language, was it just a public school? How difficult was that, and how was it trying to assimilate into that environment?
Yeah, so it was public school, PS 91 up in Brooklyn, but it wasn't as difficult because we had Haitian teachers.
Oh, okay.
All the way up to high school, our homeroom teachers were all Haitians.
Did they speak
Haitian Creole?
Okay.
Yeah. So that gave me like a piece of comfort, but that didn't deter like all the other students, all right, from fucking picking on me, right? So homeroom was good, but all the other classes, math, English, and all the other classes that I had to go to, like that was hell. At least for me at that point, right? Because I didn't know how to I didn't know how to speak English. I couldn't really relate to my classmates. Everybody had fucking cool clothes. I had hand-me-downs, you know what I mean? Just because, again, like growing up in New York City, like we didn't have that much money, right? My folks focused on putting food on the table and paying the light bills, which that's all we needed, right? Everything else was hand-me-down from like church and just other folks. So going to school and getting picked on, I remember vividly, like I had like a pair of fucking red boots. They were badass. I fucking loved them. And I was in class and it was a hand-me-down from one of my classmates, right? And he made sure that I knew that those were his boots, right? So till this day, I remember that incident. But yeah, school was, I had a lot of fighting going on, mainly because kids would pick on me, especially once they found out that I was Haitian. They would call me like Haitian booty scratcher and make fun of me for not speaking the language. But again, I got through all of that. It just made me tougher. But
what part of Brooklyn was it?
I grew up in Crown Heights.
Crown Heights.
Yeah, Crown Heights.
Is that a heavy Haitian population?
It's not.
Really?
It's not, no.
Because there are parts of New York that are pretty heavily populated Haitian, right?
Yeah, there is. But it's where I was, like, is spread out. Like, there's a decent mix, right? But Haitians were definitely the lower minority in that area. Yeah. To where all the other kids were picking on me for being Haitian, even though they were Jamaicans or whatever. You know what I mean?
Was the ethnic breakdown of your school, was it predominantly black? Or
predominantly black.
Yeah, but just a lot of different variety of heritage within that.
Correct.
How long did it take before you felt like you were American from a culture standpoint, and also how long did it take before you felt like you spoke English well enough to get it?
I would say high school.
Yeah.
High school, because middle school, I was still figuring it out. You know what I mean? That's grade 4 and 5. And then grade 6 through 8, that's middle school. We were still in they kept all the Haitian kids together. Mm-hmm. So we would have homerooms together, and then we would essentially travel together to all these different classes. It wasn't until high school that we started to break everything up, right? Yeah. High school, we had shop, which I was a computer science guy. So now I would be mixed with all the other students. It wasn't just Haitian kids, right? So now I was in a mix with all the different type of races. So I was forced to interact with them. I was forced to speak English, as opposed to when I'm with just a bunch of Haitian kids, I was speaking Haitian Creole, right? So I would say high school was when I made that transition.
Yeah. And in high school, was the breakdown ethnically more diverse that way? Yeah.
I went to high school downtown Brooklyn, right across from Lower Manhattan, and that was a decent mix of like Hispanics, white kids, black kids, like, because New York City is a melting pot, right? Yeah. But you don't really see it until you get to like the high school level, because at that point everybody's leaving like their little communities, because middle school and then essentially not kindergarten, but middle school, So elementary school and middle school, you're going to the schools in the same community that you're from, right? So my elementary and my middle school were like right down the road. Yeah. As opposed to once I got to high school, now I had to travel like an hour and a half to high school, right? Yeah. So I'm on the train, I'm on the bus, I'm meeting folks from different backgrounds, right? So yeah, definitely high school was when I made that transition and I started to become my own person.
Yeah.
I started, dressing nice. I started chasing chicks. I started living the American dream essentially, right?
Yeah.
So
man, that's so fascinating. An hour and a half to get to school?
Yeah, so hour and a half. Because at that point, my mom and dad were doing a little bit better. We moved from Crown Heights to Brownsville, which is the projects, and then we moved out of that and bought a house in Canarsie. So I would have to get on the train to Lower Manhattan, where not Lower Manhattan, but downtown Brooklyn, to Westinghouse, where I went to high school, and that took me about an hour and a half.
Wow. Yeah.
Which made it fucking worse.
Yeah.
Once the World Trade Center incident happened, I had to walk all the fuck home.
Man.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Did you play any sports?
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you wait until high school, or did you play in junior high also?
No. So junior high, we played. I played soccer a lot because growing up in Haiti, that's the sport that I knew.
Yeah.
So played soccer, ran track because I was a fucking twig, like I was skinny, so I could run like nobody's business. And then once I got to high school, I got into basketball, track, and then soccer also.
Yeah. Did you guys have a TV in New York?
Yeah.
Was that weird?
It was weird, and I was addicted to it.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. I mean, fuck, everybody is.
Yeah. We had one TV that was in the living room where like we would watch TV as a family. And I remember I used to, like, everyone would go to sleep. And at this point, we're living in Brownsville, which is the projects. So we each had our own room. Everybody would go to sleep, and the TV would be in the living room. And I remember, like, I'm like, man, there's a movie coming on tonight, True Lies by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No shit.
I was like, I gotta watch that movie.
That's such a good movie too.
It is. It was an awesome movie. So I would sneak out of my room, and I would take the TV and put it under the kitchen table and have the tablecloth dropped over so there's no light emitting. And I would be under the table watching the actual movie.
Oh, that's fucking great.
And now my mom comes out of nowhere and she picks it up, and I'm under there. Like, I was like, oh shit! Yeah. I've gotten in trouble a couple of times doing that, but yeah,
oh, that's awesome.
It was so exciting.
Do you remember the first thing that you watched on TV?
Oh man, that's a good question. When I first got to the States, Ninja Turtles.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ninja
that
Turtles.
had to have been like watching aliens.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? But
yeah,
Ninja Turtles.
All right, so you're in high school and you're playing sports. You're, kind of making your way into American culture, as it were. At what point did 9/11 happen while you were in school?
So I was a junior in high school.
Wow, living in New York when it happened.
Living in New York, and it's so real because I was telling you guys earlier. I was just in New York City 2 weeks ago, and I went to Lower Manhattan, and as I'm walking to the hotel room, right across the street there's Century 21. So Century 21 is like a big shopping store in New York City. And September 10th, a couple of my buddies and I, we had skipped school or jumped school, whatever kids are saying nowadays, and we went to Century 21 to shop, right? And the next day, like literally Century 21 is right here, and the World Trade Center is like right across the street.
Yeah.
The next day, September 11 happened. So I always, like, every time I think about that day, I'm like, man, had it been a day earlier, I don't know where I would be or if I wouldn't be alive, right? Yeah. So yeah, I was a junior in high school. We were in shop class, computer science, and I was sitting, I sat all the way towards the windows, like the very last row, because at that point, like, the internet was like brand new, right? And I used to go in there and fucking look at porn. And I would sit at the very back row because there's nobody behind us, right? So we can look at whatever we want on the fucking computer.
Yeah.
And then it was 10:45, and like I heard the first plane hit.
Really?
Yeah, but again, downtown Brooklyn, construction everywhere. Like, we didn't even think twice about what was going on because we hear it all the time. But it wasn't until we had a student, he was running late, he ran into the classroom, and it was just business as usual. Like, we were all just in class, just handling business. He walks in. He's like, "Do you guys know what just happened?" We're like, "No." Like, what happened? And that's when he told us, like, "Hey, like, there's the plane just ran into the World Trade Center." And the teacher called the front office. The principal confirmed it, and that's when we found out, like, holy shit, like, planes are running in the buildings. And right then and there, they ended class. And I think the entire, area ended class at the same time, because when I got outside, it was just a shit ton of kids, because where I was, there was 3 high schools, all let out around the same time. And we're just standing there and we're looking across the bridge, because you can see it. Like, you can see the smoke coming from the building from where we were at. And then the mouth of the bridge is right next to our school. So we saw everybody walking from Lower Manhattan, pouring onto the streets, because the transportation systems were down. They shut everything down. So everybody had to walk. Because I always joke, like, nobody lives in Manhattan. They just go work there. So they live in Brooklyn and Jersey and all these other places. So they all started walking across the bridge to Brooklyn so they can go home. And I remember that day, because as they were coming, from Lower Manhattan, you just saw their face, and it was, full of dust, like just defeated. And
sorry, go ahead.
And then we just continue walking. I think it took me like 12, I would say about 8 hours to get home that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a definitive moment where you guys learned that a second plane had hit, or was it just the first plane had hit and everything started then? And
yeah, so the first plane hit, and that's what started everything.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got outside and I saw people like walking, like from Lower Manhattan and trying to get away from the city, I just started walking with them. I didn't stick around to find out what actually took place or if there was a second plane. I just wanted to get out of there just like everybody else was, because we didn't know what was going on.
So you didn't even know a second plane hit until on the way home, or when you got home? Or
I didn't find out it was a second plane until, I would say, like a couple of days later, because television, like the antenna was on the top of the World Trade Center, and we didn't have cable then. We just had regular air TV, like bunny ears.
Yeah.
So nobody can get any signal. So I didn't find out until they were able to get the signals back up and we were able to watch TV.
Yeah.
So that's when I found out it was 2 planes instead of 1. And that's when I found out the buildings actually collapsed.
How did that, I guess, first of all, it took you 8 hours to get home. Obviously, your parents had no idea.
No.
When you got home, were they like, Jesus, you're okay? Or,
yeah. Because, again, we didn't have cell phones, right? I remember having a little Nokia phone, but it was just for show. I just wanted to show the girls that I was cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's not connected. Yeah, so my folks didn't find out about, myself and because my younger brother was going to school also. He wasn't around the Manhattan area, but he was somewhere else. But the transportation systems were still shut down.
Yeah.
So once we got home, my folks were already home. And then they just hugged us and, make sure that we were okay. And that's when I told them, like, yeah, we saw the smoke, we heard it, but we didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
They were just relieved that, that we were all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming the school was shut down for a little while.
Yeah.
Right?
So school was down for about a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did your parents talk to you about what had happened, the gravity behind it, or
no?
Not really?
No. Like I said, when you're, and I understand it now, because again, like when you're a immigrant family with 8 kids to provide for in New York City, your priorities are different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they understood what took place, but I don't think they thought it was going to affect them as much as it would later on.
Sure.
So they just kept, finding ways to get to work to provide.
Yeah.
Essentially.
What did your parents do for a living?
So my dad was a taxi driver, starting off in New York City. Taxi driver during the day, and at night he would clean offices.
Oh, okay.
In Manhattan. My mom was a school bus teacher. Eventually, my dad became a school bus teacher also.
Driver or teacher?
I'm sorry, driver.
Okay.
Yeah, both of them drove school buses.
Oh, okay. Man, that's wild. So kind of a little or a smaller impact from a gravity standpoint.
Yeah.
Is it something that you thought about at that time of what had happened, why, or was it kind of taking a page out of your parents' book? You were just still kind of focused on what was going on?
So at that time, I didn't really think about, the gravity of the situation. I was just focusing on school, right? And I'll revert back to this, like, it didn't affect my folks financially. It affected them later on when majority of their kids joined the military.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, it was like, okay, I don't have to go to school for a week. Awesome. I get to hang out. But as my senior year hit, and I started to think about what I wanted to do, and I started to get exposed to the military and what they were doing overseas and how we were holding the folks responsible for this accountable, that's when the light switched on for me. As in, holy shit, like they attacked, this country that's done so much for my mom and my dad and my brothers, you know what I mean? Like, and I was a horrible student to begin with. And I'm like, okay, well, if they're going and making these people pay, like, I should go with them and also avenge the folks that passed away from the towers, right?
Prior to that light switch moment, did you have aspirations to do something?
Yeah, so I wanted to be a cop.
Really?
Yeah, but it was all along the same lines of protecting the city.
Yeah.
Right? Because, high school is easy when it comes to academics. So I got done with high school, then I tried college one semester, and I quickly realized, okay, this isn't for me. Like, no one gives a shit in college. Professors get paid either way, right?
A local college?
Yeah. Down in Harlem City College. So I was like, man, this college thing isn't working out. Like, I want to be a cop. So I went and spoke to the NYPD recruiter, and I told him, hey, I want to be a cop. I want to protect the city. I want to make sure, if a 9/11 happens again, like, I want to do my part, right? And then he laid it out for me. He was like, yep, in order to be a cop, you got to have 2 years of college, or you got to have military experience, right? And then I looked at him, I was like, I'm getting ready to drop out of college, so that's not going to work. And then I was like, I'll go get the military experience, right? And that's what I did.
With the intention of doing a couple of years, coming back and being a cop, but then
correct.
Then the green machine got a hold of you.
Yeah, oh yeah. Because once I joined, I realized, holy shit, instead of being a cop in New York City, policing up just New York, now I can be a cop, within the military around the world and making sure a 9/11 never shows up to our doorstep.
Yeah.
Right. And then I got in, and it was easy for me. So I was like, fuck, man, I'll just keep doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your initial impression of the military as a whole?
Man. So I had a hard time in basic training because something about kids coming out of New York City or some of these inner cities, like, we have this chip on our shoulders of, hey, we're tough, we're rough and tough, and nobody can, mess with me. I'm from New York City, Brooklyn, all that dumb shit, right? And then I got into basic training and I started bucking the system. And those drill sergeants fucking tore my ass up. Dude, it was
Where
like...
did you go to basic?
So I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a little different than what you're used to.
Yeah, basic and AIT, right? So the first 2 weeks, it was just breaking us down, right? And making sure we understand, like, it's no longer you as an individual. It's about the team now. And it took me a while to figure that out. And it took countless smoking and countless of times me, being pulled out of my bunk and taken outside and given some tough love for me to finally fall into place and started to participate and started being part of a team.
Yeah.
But once I, started to, do what I was supposed to do, right time, right place, right uniform, like, it was easy for me. Yeah.
Taking one step back, I mean, growing up, once you were in, say high school in Brooklyn, were there any components of gang violence or anything, drugs, I mean, any of that kind of stuff that you got into or that impacted you? See,
surprisingly, I didn't get into any of that, man, because my mom and dad, they didn't play those games.
Yeah.
Like, they were very, very strict. Until this day, like, I always give them props because, they raised eight kids out of, Brooklyn, New York, and none of them have any drug-related problems. None of them have been arrested. and all of them, majority of them has joined the military and has made something out of themselves, right? Yeah. So for that, I will always give them praise. But no, it was a very, you go to school, after school, you better be home.
Yeah.
And if you're not home, you're going to find out about it. Yeah. And I'll share this with you. I remember two of my buddies, because it used to piss me off because my buddies would go hang out and chase chicks and do all this shit, and I had to be home, right? So one day, I got with my buddy. I was like, hey, I want you to call my mom and pretend to be the teacher and tell her that you have to stay, like that I have to stay after school for this project, all right? That way, we all can go to the library and we would go chase chicks there, right? So he was like, okay, cool, no problem. So he calls the house and my mom picks up the phone and he pretended to be my teacher.
Yeah.
And he was like, yes, Miss Dorleus, this is, such and such. We have a project after school and we want your son to stay because he's a vital part to the project. Can he stay? And my mom cussed him out because she recognized the voice. Yeah. She knew it was one of my friends. So she cussed him out. And then once I got home, I got a beating. I was like, God damn it. Yeah. But yeah, they were very strict in making sure that we went to school. And after school, we came right home.
Yeah.
And then we started our chores because she didn't want us hanging out because she knew exactly what that led to. And I didn't see it back then, but I definitely see why they did it now.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so back to boot camp. You kind of finally get on step or get your bearings, so to speak, and start rocking and rolling. You go through boot camp and then to AIT, and as a combat engineer, skill set wise, what was that like learning that and then ultimately deploying to Iraq not long after?
Yeah. So combat engineers were basically responsible for clearing minefields, amongst other things, right? So demolitions, we essentially blow shit up is what is what the recruiter told me, right? He showed me this cool video of us doing demo and blowing all this cool shit up. Low crawling in a minefield, clearing landmines and all that good stuff. So that's essentially the job, right? Minefield clearing, destruction of structures, and also building of structures, right? It's kind of like you guys' equivalent of CBs when it comes to building, right? Finished AIT, got to my unit, and deploy right away doing that job, right? So while I was in basic training, one of the things that the drill sergeant used to do was, because the Iraq war kicked off while I was in basic training. Oh, wow. I think it was April or May. I got to basic training March 13th of 2003. So what they would do is they would fuck with us. Like they would wake us up in the middle of the night and they would make us pack our entire wall locker into two duffel bags, and they would have a bus outside. And they'll be like, hey, we just got the call. We need y'all in Iraq. And they'll made us load the buses as if we were going, right? Yeah. And dudes would just start fucking crying. They'd be like, oh my God, I need to call my mom. I need to write a letter. So they're stressing us out, and then they'll make us unload the bus and go back to sleep. So I get to my unit, and my squad leader, he's like, hey, don't unpack your duffel bags. We're going to Iraq in 2 months.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I heard this story before. So I go through in process, get everything done, and then I meet like the company commander and the first sergeant. They was like, yep, we got orders September of 2003. The company's going to Iraq to conduct route clearance, which is finding and diffusing of IEDs. But IEDs were still at their infancy. 2 months into my unit, I'm fucking in Iraq a couple of fucking months later, clearing for IEDs. And we didn't even know how to do that until, much later on, but it's a different story.
How was being there expectation versus reality?
Being in Iraq?
Yeah.
Dude, I was 19, man. I didn't know. At that point, I was just there, to be honest with you. Like, I didn't know what I was doing there. I didn't know. I didn't really know what my purpose was at that time. I just knew I was there with my friends, and we were at war.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, it's hard to put that into words. Thinking of it now, like I was just there just because I had to be there.
Were you scared? It's okay.
No.
I mean,
honestly, I wasn't, man. Like, because I didn't know the gravity of the situation.
Yeah.
Right. It didn't hit me until we started losing guys.
I got you.
Of how serious it was.
Yeah.
Right. Up to that point, I was like, yep, I'm in another country and I'm getting paid extra money to go walk around on the roads and trying to find these things before they blow up.
Yeah.
Right. So after we started losing guys, then it was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, I can fucking die.
Were you guys not getting shot at when you were doing that?
No. So it was weird because where we were at, like, because I was part of the initial invasion going in, but I was on the back end. So by the time we got there, Third ID had fucking destroyed everything.
Yeah.
Right. So by the time we got there, they were all on the run, trying to reorganize and consolidate into whatever they became much later on.
Right.
So their tactics, once we got to where we were, which was right outside of Ramadi, was to break into the ASP, grab ammunitions, and turn them into IEDs. That was the tactics that they were using then. It wasn't, hey, let's hide out here and just shoot at them. It was more, we're going to set up these IEDs, blow them up, and then disappear. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So that tactic became more popular once I hit country. Yeah.
Okay. And how long was that first deployment?
The first deployment was 12 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you guys lost several guys at that?
Oh, yeah. We, so it started off, we lost within my squad alone, and this was the one that really did it for me, with, the survivor's guilt and all the other stuff that comes with doing this job. I remember this one, we were going down this route because they would have us go in front of convoys that were delivering supplies to make sure the routes was clear so they can get, all these supplies to all these different FOBs, because that's how we were supplying back then. We weren't doing like airlifts or any of that stuff. So we're clearing this road, and it's all dirt roads. And at the time, we didn't have up-armored vehicles or any of that shit. We had tracked vehicles, M112s, which we put sandbags at the bottom of, like it was going to stop something, right? So we're clearing these tracked vehicles. I was the number 3 vehicle out of this 4-vehicle convoy. And we're going, correction, I was number 2 vehicle, clearing the in the convoy itself. So we're clearing. First vehicle goes through, no problem. My vehicle goes through, and I'm standing outside the hatch, pulling security off to the side. And then the third vehicle goes through, and I didn't hear this explosion. I just saw it. It was like a big mushroom cloud of just dirt, right? And I'm staring back at the vehicle behind me, and I look, and I can see a vehicle kind of catty corner off the road. So the convoy stops, and I'm like, okay, we're good to go. Like, ID went off, but nobody got hurt, right? Because I can see a vehicle, but what I didn't realize was that was the number 4 vehicle in the 4-vehicle convoy. So one vehicle was in front of me, I'm second vehicle. The number 3rd vehicle, the IED took it from the bottom and kind of blew it into the air and just kind of, essentially fucking disintegrate this entire vehicle. So I'm standing there, and I look up, and there's an engine block floating towards the troop hatch from vehicle number 3. So I tell the gunner, I was like, hey, like, we need to move. And as soon as we pull up, the engine block fucking drops. It's the engine block from the vehicle that just got blown up. Man. So at this point, like, we get out, we go through our little battle drills, we set up security, and we start looking around. We're like, yo, where the fuck is vehicle number 3? And the biggest part of that vehicle was that engine block. And at that point, like, this was April, so there was no QRF, or if there was QRF, it just took them a long fucking time to get to us. Yeah. To the point where we had to set up security, and then we essentially had to fucking walk around and pick up fucking body parts, right? So as I'm doing that, it starts to, like, that's when reality started to sink in. Like, holy shit, like, I'm picking up fucking body parts off my teammates, off my squad mates right now, right? Yeah. And that made it real for me. And after that incident, I didn't get scared. I just got I started to turn into something that I didn't realize I was turning into as far as a fucking monster, right? Like just at 19, I was starting to come unglued, right? To where the rest of the deployments, it was just savagery throughout the entire fucking area that we were in. Like we started being extra vigilant. I'll just put it that way, extra vigilant, mean, just not taking shit from anybody, right?
I'm assuming nobody survived in that vehicle.
No, man. We lost 6 dudes.
Yeah.
6 dudes.
All close friends of yours.
Yeah, all part of my squad. Because I'm sure you can relate, man. Like, I got there in, with 2 months prior to deploying. So I didn't know those guys as well. But once we got into country, dude, you're living, you're breathing, you're smelling those dudes, right? You had dudes that... We had one dude, he was always telling jokes. He was the humor within the squad. You eat with those dudes. We became fucking brothers, essentially, right? Especially, just the bond that you develop when you're at war.
Yeah.
Every living, I spent more time with those dudes than I did with my entire family, right? Every living day, you're seeing, you're breathing, you're talking to those dudes, right?
Yeah. And
for them to just disappear just like that, and the manner that they went to where all that's left of them are fucking chunks of meat, that really started to fuck with not only me, but the rest of the guys that survived. Because now it came down to, holy shit, could I have done something different to spot that IED? But there was no way, because they had packed it from the side of the road, underneath the road, to where there was no way to spot that, right? So that was eye-opening for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fuck, I can imagine. When you say you kind of evolved or turned into a monster at that point or during that deployment, when you talk about that and being extra vigilant, were you guys doing offensive engagements, or was it purely sweeping of?
Yeah, and that's what gravitated me towards special operation was, because those first 2 deployments, I felt like it was all, we were sitting ducks. We were essentially a pawn, because in my mind, I'm oh, they rather us get fucking blown up instead of these convoys that'll bring in supplies. Yeah. Somebody's getting blown up if we don't find this shit. And at that point, the technology was so, in its infancy, to where it wasn't fucking working. We had old fucking mine detectors trying to find these IEDs, and I'm okay, so we're just being sent out there to get fucking blown up.
Yeah.
And then if we get blown up, oh well, at least the convoy can go through and deliver these fucking supplies, right? So we were very, very reactive. Yeah. It was yep, go out there, IED goes off, battle drills, pick up body parts, 9-line, rinse and repeat, right? So it was very, very frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit, I can imagine the instances like that first IED that blew your guys up. Were there more of those? Yep. So we lost 6 squad mates that day, and then consecutive months we went on to lose the company commander. We went on to lose the first sergeant. Then we lost the supply guy. Then we lost the mechanics. I think we lost 11 dudes total. Was it all IEDs?
All IEDs. All IEDs.
Were there ever instances on that deployment where the IED was the initiation of an ambush, or was it just static IEDs and
it was
ghosts?
So it was just static IEDs for us, because at that point, like I said, our main job was just clearing.
Yeah.
So they would wait until, they saw us coming, blow it up, and then run. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, at 19 being fodder, essentially, that's got to... Yeah, I can't even imagine the head fuckery that goes on with that.
Yeah.
So you come home from that 12-month deployment. How long were you back before you deployed again back?
All right, so I get home from that deployment, and I think it's important that I mention this, because from that deployment alone, I was a fucking menace. I took everything that had happened to me in Iraq and I brought it back to the States, to where I was out of control.
How so?
So I was getting into a lot of fights, not only within the military walls, but also outside. Like, we would go down to K-State, which is right there by Fort Riley, Kansas, and we would get in a fight with the football players and just fucking wreak havoc. Just all the guys from my squads that survived, like, we all had the same anger. So we'd just go downtown and just start beating on college kids. When the cop would jump in and try to stop us, we would jump on them. You know what I mean? So I found myself spending countless nights in fucking jail because I didn't know how to deal with what I was going through. I would, go through the barracks and start stealing from some of my fucking squad mates.
Just
right?
random shit or specifics?
No, so I would, it was a couple of us. We would wait till they go in the showers, and then we would go through their wallets and fucking steal their money, steal their fucking credit cards, and just buy shit, right? So I was doing a lot of that, man, and I was heading towards a really, really bad fucking place. And it wasn't until I got this platoon sergeant in, awesome leaders, which till this day, I believe that a leader has the opportunity to steer, soldiers into the right, path, or stare them down a fucked up path. You know what I mean? Because if it wasn't for that platoon sergeant that showed up and, started to fucking ring me in, like, I probably wouldn't be here, right? So I was doing a lot of that stuff, man, and it wasn't until, he started to ring us in, because he was also deployed in a different company, and he heard what we were going through. And at that point, a lot of the guys that were in the platoon had gotten out, and there were a few of us left. So he took us in, started to ring us in, identify all the fucked up shit we were doing, made us go back and, return everything and apologize to all the dudes that we were doing that shit to, and just kind of sat us down and told us, like, hey, if you keep doing this shit, you're going to end up in jail, right? So you have two options. I can chapter you out the Army right now, or you can go to fucking behavioral health and get the help that you need. Wow. Right? Yeah.
Spending nights in jail for fighting typically isn't something that you can do very much of in the military. How did your unit deal with that and not kick you out, right then and there?
So it's funny because the police station or the court system down in Aggieville, Manhattan, they were sympathetic because they knew what we were going through as soldiers. Like, they've seen it on the news. So they gave us a lot of fucking leeway, which we abused to an extent. So whenever we would get in trouble, instead of processing us and hitting us with felonies, all this other shit, they would just call the MPs and say, hey,
your guys are down here, come pick them up.
Your guys are down here, come fucking pick them up. Yeah. And this would happen over and over again. Wow. So they were very, very understanding. Until this day, I remember I had to, once everything started to clear up, I had to go back to the police station and apologize to an entire shift for my actions like the week prior. And a lot of guys were starting to do that once we started getting the help that we needed, because they didn't have to be that understanding. They could have fucking slammed us. Yeah. But this was the beginning of the Iraq War. Like, 1st Infantry Division is down there, and we're right in the midst of it, rotating like every year. Yeah. So they saw an uptick of dudes coming back with those problems. Yeah. And they understood, like, okay, these guys are fucking coming back without their buddies. Mm-hmm. Like, they don't know how to, these are, dude, I was 19. My buddy, we had a kid that was 18. Like, we were fucking kids. Yeah. Right? And they saw that and they understood. It was like, we can't ruin their lives right now. Like, let's let them figure this shit out. Yeah. And I don't know if that came about because the base commander was talking to him down there and explaining shit to him, but they gave us a lot of fucking leeway. Yeah. Yeah.
That's just good to hear, I guess, and nice to hear. You go and get the help that you need. Could you summarize the gist of whatever the therapy work was or did to help you rationalize and ultimately put it past you?
Yeah. So it started off with me just going and just speaking to a therapist, which again, man, like having been there, I feel good about sharing this because it's not something that we talk a lot about. Even now, suicide rates is fucking out of control because a lot of guys from our community don't think that's a manly thing to do, right? But I can tell, you know, whoever's watching, like that shit fucking saved my life at like 20. Because sitting there and talking through those events and sharing it with somebody and them explaining to me like how it wasn't my fault that IED fucking went off and killed all those dudes helped me. Because for the longest, I blamed myself like, man, I should have spotted that. If I had spotted that, those guys would have been alive.
And I don't ask this as a smart ass. Did you have kind of that Goodwill Hunting Robin Williams moment of the it's not your fault
I did.
Kind of premonition? I
did. Yeah. And then once I accepted that, it made me a better soldier and a more, what's the word I'm looking for? It made me a better soldier and a better, I guess, fucking killer, if you want to put it that way, right? Because then I accepted the fact that, hey, this incident was going to happen anyways. Like, I'm not responsible. Like, I don't dictate when people are born and when they die, right? Like, leading up to that point, yeah, we went to church as, you know, like when I was growing up, but I was never like a religious person, right? But speaking to somebody made me understand that, hey, when a person is born and when they die isn't up to you, right? Those guys were going to pass away anyways because that was when they were scheduled to pass. You know what I mean? And once I accepted that, I was fucking fearless for all my deployments. And I just did work, man, because I understood as a soldier, like there's only so much I can fucking control. Yeah. Right? I can go in the battlefield, do my part. If it's time for me to die, I'm going to fucking die. Mm-hmm. Right? And that statement became true where I would have teammates, we would go through fucking hell together in Afghanistan, and then they get back and they die on a fucking motorcycle accident, like right outside the gate. And I'm like, holy shit, that dude literally survived like an impossible situation downrange just so he can be at a fucking stoplight and get hit by a car. Yeah. You know what I mean? So sitting down and going through that process really helped me understand and helped me put things in perspective. Like, hey, when it's your time to go, you're gonna go, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Yeah,
it's a powerful journey for sure. Yeah. So you work through all that. You end up deploying again as a combat engineer. Yep. Similar deployment.
Yep. Yeah. Similar deployment. Only this time, this was 2007, 2008. Right. IEDs are more advanced. We have better vehicles, but the fucking tactics were the same. We were out there just sitting ducks, being reactive, and just watching people die, right?
Lose more guys.
Yeah. So at this point, again, once I got my shit together from that therapy stage session, I started excelling as a fucking soldier, right? It was right time, right place, right uniform. Like I made E6 within 4 years. Like I was fucking crushing it, right? This time I'm a squad leader. So now I have a group of dudes that I'm leading through this shit show that is route clearance. And this was the one that did it for me to where I'm like, I had fucking enough. We're conducting a route clearing operation. This is right outside of Tikrit, Iraq. And we get hit with a VBIED, right? Entire fucking RG-31 just destroyed. And I lose one of my team leaders. Shrapnel came in through, and till this day, I think about that incident because one piece of shrapnel made it into that vehicle. One piece came in through his driver window, came in, hit him right here in the neck, came out right here.
It's like, how does that happen?
How the fuck does that happen? The driver's fine. The TC who was top gunning, he's fine from a fucking VBIED blast. Wow. He's fine. All the guys in the back, they're all fine. Yeah, but the driver.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that it's not your time if something like that happens.
Yeah. The driver. So that happens. I get out the vehicle. I run out there. This time we're taking small arms fire. But
are you responding to it?
No, I'm just going to that vehicle.
Were any of your guys?
Yeah. So we go through the SOP where, like we set up security, put a vehicle up front, one behind us, and then one in the flank where the IED went off. And those guys are engaging the target out there. Me and one other guy, I'm running towards that vehicle to see what's going on there, right? So I get there, pull the guy out of the vehicle, start treating him right then and there. 50 cows going off, but as soon as we start engaging, they take off, right? Go through that process. Again, the guy was still alive at that point, but he's seizing bad, brain matter's fucking pouring out of his head, and he essentially dies on the bird, right? And after that deployment, man, I was like, I'm fucking done. Like, I'm no longer gonna be upon just driving and just reacting. I was like, I gotta fucking go do something else.
Yeah, you want to be the predator, not the prey.
And I was like, I'm fucking done with this shit.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah, I can see that would be a common thought process for guys in that environment. So you get back, you decide to go through Q course, Green Beret selection. Two things. One, why Green Berets and not Rangers? And two, how receptive or not was your existing unit to you going and doing that?
So after that deployment, we got back, and there was a squad leader of mine. Well, we were squad leaders together. I had first squad, he had second squad. And this dude's like one of those badass dudes that's been excelling since he, started his military career. So he went to selection. Leading up to that point, like I didn't know shit about special operations. I just didn't, right? When I joined the Army, recruiter didn't speak about it. Once I got in the Army, all I knew was, 12 Bravo stuff, right? So he went to selection screen and he didn't get selected. And so he came back, he started talking about it. I was like, man, that sounds interesting. I was like, I'm gonna go, right? So that's how I found out about SF to begin with. So then I went the next class and I got picked up, right? And I came.
So your unit was totally
Oh yeah. They didn't care because at that point I came down on orders to be a drill sergeant during that same time period. So it was either I go to selection and get selected, or I come back because the Army saw that I was, fast tracking as far as promotion wise. And they were like, oh, this dude must be squared away. Like, let's get him to go be a drill sergeant to go, make new recruits, right? And I didn't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
So my unit left it up to me. They gave me the time I needed to go train and to be successful. They understood, and they knew the work we'd done downrange with the IEDs and all that stuff. And they supported me, and that allowed me to train as hard as I could to go down and be successful at selection.
Yeah. How was selection in terms of going through it, difficulty, challenge, mentality, all those types of things? Yeah,
so selection sucked. So the first week for me, as far as the physical gates, that wasn't bad at all because I've always been in shape and I've always lived in the gym, right? So that part of it was easy. And then I hit land nav, right? I suck at that because I grew up in New York City. I just didn't grow up doing land navigation.
No skyscrapers to guide off of.
Exactly, right? I'm looking up, I'm like, oh shit, it's nothing but trees. So I had a really, really hard time during the second week of land navigation because I didn't know how to do it. Like I've practiced a little bit prior to going to selection, but I didn't really get it until I hit selection. So the first 3 days were horrible. And then day 4 and day 5, I started to figure it out.
Was it more self-imposed, or did somebody give you help with it?
So it was self-imposed. Yeah. Like I figured out, all right, so I'm in good enough shape to where I could just run to all these different points. And if I make a mistake, I want to give myself enough time to correct it.
I got you.
So I started using backstops, which the selection cadre gave us a class at the very beginning of week 2. And they explained to us what all these different things were, backstop, tack points, and all these different terms. But it wasn't until like day 4 and 5 that I started using them. I was like, okay, well, shit. If I have a backstop here, that'll let me know if I go too far. Yeah. So I just started running everywhere. Like I would run to my points or to where I thought my points were. And if I make a mistake, like I would just run back and then self-correct and get to the next point. So being in shape helped me out during the second week because I just made up a lot of time by running. And then that helped me overcome my mistakes that I was making. Yeah. And then week 3, man, like shit. I just showed up. Like week 3 broke everybody off. Like team week, down pilot, and doing all these different Mission Impossible tasks. I didn't have much left in the tank. And I found, like, I'm one of those dudes, like when I get tired and hungry, like I get really, really upset and I start
angry.
Yeah, like I'm one of those dudes. And at that point, I was so tired and so hungry, like I didn't have any sympathy for fucking quitters. Yeah. And there were a lot of dudes within my team that were quitting. And I was so upset because I'm like, dude, like we're all going through this shit together. Like, why the fuck? Like, we're literally like right next to the finish line. Why are you quitting right now? And I remember I snapped at a dude, and the selection cadres, like, they don't tell you anything, right? They just write on their little notepads, and it's supposed to fuck with your head. So like we're almost done, and this kid quits, and I just snapped at him. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And the selection cadre saw me, right? And he broke character because he called me off to the side. He was like, hey man, like why are you snapping at him? And then he was like, do you think you've been giving 100% since you started this small mission? And I'm like, yeah, I think I have. And he just looks at me and shakes his head and he walks away. And I'm like, fuck. Like, I just cost myself me getting selected was what I was thinking, right? So that started fucking with me during the last couple of days of selection. And I'm like, shit, man, like, is that going to keep me from getting selected? And then I had to snap out of it and be like, you know what, fuck it. Like, I'm going to keep performing. If I don't get selected because of that, then it is what it is. But I'm not going to self-select. But in all, like being in shape helped me get the selection. Yeah. If I wasn't able to, I went when I was 25, so I was probably in the best shape of my life. Yeah. If it wasn't for that, I probably would not have gotten selected, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other issues, problems throughout the entire training pipeline until you actually become a Green Beret?
Yeah, so got done with selection, got French and 18 Charlie, which was what I wanted. And then
what is 18 Charlie?
18 Charlie's the engineer sergeant, right? So does all the demolitions and all that shit. Essentially the 12 Bravo equivalent of Special Forces, I gotcha. Right? And then the only other hiccup I had was in SUT, which is the first phase of the Q course, small unit tactics, all right? So, because again, I'm from a soft skill MOS. 12 Bravo is not 11 Bravo, right? I didn't have infantry background. I didn't have Ranger school. So tactics itself was difficult for me. So going through SUT, I actually got recycled because I failed my patrol. And that fucked with me a little bit because my biggest fear at that point was I'm going to fail and I'm going to go back to being a 12 Bravo and conducting rock clearance all over again. And I just couldn't fucking have that. Yeah. So after I recycled, I just went into this hole and just spent hours and hours reading the Ranger Handbook, doing a lot of sand tables and just repetition of learning all of this stuff. And I was able to get past it the second time. But just that failure's not an option mentality got me through that first phase there, and the rest of it was history. Like, I didn't have any issues going forward.
Yeah. Where were you first stationed once you completed everything?
So I got third group right there on Fort Bragg, and I stayed there for the rest of my career. Yeah. Yeah.
Day one, you're a Green Beret. What's that like?
Once I graduated, I felt accomplished, right? I felt like now shit's about to get real. Like, this is where it starts. Like, this is what I wanted. This is where my revenge tour begins, right? That's essentially what I was thinking, because I lost a shit ton of dudes in the first deployment, lost a team leader in the second deployment. Now it's like, okay, now I get to take it to the enemy, right? This is what it's all about.
And then day one, you show up, and it's like Goldie Wilson from Back to the Future, and he hands you a mop.
That's exactly what happened, man. So I get done with the Q course, and I go to third group headquarters, and the headquarters is deployed. They're forward deployed to Siege Sodef, because at that time, third group had switched its area of operation from Africa to just Afghanistan, right? So they're not there, and I check in with the Red Detachment folks. They're like, yeah, you're not going to a team. You're going to the BDOC. Like, you're going to sit on a base and do nothing. I was like, fuck. So I get there in February and April. I'm at Bath, sitting at the BDOC in the Siege Sodef, and everybody
else. Can you
else.
Explain those three acronyms real quick?
Yeah. So Siege Sodef is Combined Joint Task Force Afghanistan. That's who runs the country, essentially, when it comes to SOF, right? So third group had it at that moment. So all the third group teams report to the group commander and the sergeant major there. And then all the different ODAs, they're pushed out to the outposts. And at that point, we were doing village stability operations. The BDOC is the base defense sector on Camp Vans, which was where Siege Sodef was at that time. So I get there, and I was...
What's BAF?
BAF is Bagram Air Force Base.
Okay.
Yep. So I get there, and I'm on the night shift. Like, that was my job for like 4 months. I'm fucking sitting there, and I'm watching screens, making sure that people that check onto Camp Vans are supposed to be there. I sign them on, I sign them out, and I'm the camp mayor, making sure that everything works. I'm like, what the fuck, man? So I become unruly there, right? Like, I started, because it's one of those things, like, I'm sure, anybody within special operations can relate. Like, if you put me in a place that I don't want to be, and I can't go where I want to go, I'm going to make the best out of that situation, right? So I become the camp mayor on Camp Vans, and I quickly became, like, the man. It's like you're in high school and you're like the star quarterback, right? I'm like, okay, so I'm on this base camp. I'm responsible for the op fund. I'm responsible for what comes and leave this place. Like, everybody that wants something, they have to come through me. So I'm like, okay, yeah, no problem. So I quickly, as the 18 Charlie, like, I started willing and dealing, making everybody happy, making friends, building influence, doing all that good stuff, right? To where it was essentially my base camp, right? And that started pissing off the first sergeant that I worked for. Yeah. And and when I first got there, I told him, I was like, check it out, dude. I want to go to a team. Like, do not let me sit here and do nothing. Send me to a team. Send me to Kandahar. Like, I already have a team picked out. I've been talking to them. They want me there. He was like, no. You got to do this, and then you'll go back to Fort Bragg, and then you'll get on a team from there. I was supposed to do 6 months there, right? I was like, fine. If I'm going to be here, I'm going to make the best out of it. So I was crushing it, right? Became probably the most popular dude on that base camp, and he couldn't stand that. Yeah. Because he was a single guy, right? He was a single first, and and it's funny because he was a single first sergeant, and there was an Air Force chick there that he wanted. Yeah. I was like, nah, homie, you can't have that. So she started hanging out with me, right? And he found out. Dude, within a week of him finding out, my ass was on a C-130. Jesus. En route to fucking Kandahar.
Of all reasons to fucking put somebody to work, a fucking piece of ass. Like,
bro,
that's so stupid.
And I remember because I was hanging out Friday night, like every Friday, we would throw parties at Camp Vans. Yeah. We had like a little bee hut. Like, we would go out to Bagram, Maine, because we had our own little base camp. And then we would, recruit chicks. We'd be like, hey, we're having a party at the special operation compound. Come on over. Yeah. And they would come over. We had this big fucking parties. And I remember sitting there, and the admin guy, he came in. He was like, "Jay, what did you do?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Dude, the group sergeant major came into my fucking shop and told me you need to get Jay Dorleus out of here right now." And I'm looking at him. I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, "Yes, they said you are living too comfortable as a brand new SF guy. You are living way too comfortable. You need to go out there and suck and see what it really means to be an SF guy." Yeah. And I looked at him like, "Dude, that's what I've been asking for since I've got here." Yeah. So the first sergeant, once he found out he couldn't have that girl, he went to the group sergeant major and told the group sergeant major that, "Hey, get Jay Dorleus out of here right now."
So stupid.
Dude, it was the dumbest shit ever. But
either way, you got to go to the show, right?
Yeah. So I get down to sort of South, Special Operations Task Force South, which is in Kandahar, Camp Brown, and I get to a team, right? And at this time, we're doing village stability operation, which for the audience, that's where I think it was General McChrystal at that time. His plan was to take special forces operator, put them in a village, and then they build out a fire base, and they just lived in that village, like a true unconventional warfare scenario, right? So my team was in May 1 district, and we pretty much ran that entire area. We created our own little militia, the Afghan local police. We recruited them, we trained them, and we employed them. We had the Afghan National Special Forces team with us, also living in our compound. And every day, man, we were just getting after it. It was awesome.
So you guys were going out and operating with Afghani forces.
Yep.
Any blue on green, green on blue, any of that kind of stuff happened?
No. So
relationship?
No. So we actually had a really good relationship with them, man, because we were able to befriend the village elders, and they gave us their trusted guys, right? And they hated the Taliban in that area. So whenever IEDs would get placed, they would come to our little fob and they would tell us, "Hey, Taliban just put an IED there." They went to that village. We would go out, clear the IEDs, and start chasing bad dudes. Yeah. So we created a shit ton of white space while we were there conducting that specific mission.
Yeah. During that entire, like once you got out there and were putting in work, good firefights?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Can you, like just from that deployment in particular or specifically, share a couple of stories of some good rock'em sock'em shoot 'em ups that you got into?
Gotcha. So the very first one that I'll share is when I got shot at for the first time, because I think everybody remembers their first time, right?
Just like getting laid, you never forget the first time getting shot at.
So we, so we're in the village after the Afghan had, they came to us and told us, "Hey, we saw some bad dudes in a village right now," and it was one of those villages that we couldn't really get a foothold in. Like it was about 10 kilometers away from our base camp, maybe a little bit more. But they came to us, it was like, "Yep, there's bad dudes over there. Like, can you go do something about it?" And at that point, like all we needed was a 5W. We sent it up, and then we mount up, and then we start heading towards that area. So we start patrolling. We go into the village, we clear it, and they're not there. So we're like, "What the fuck?" Right? So we hold a KLE. KLE stands for Key Leaders Engagement, where we pull the village elder in. We'll talk to him. We're like, "Hey, we were told Taliban dudes were here. Like, where are they?" They're like, "Oh, mister, we don't know anything." We're like, "Okay, whatever," right? So we talk to them, and we're getting ready to leave. So we start, leaving. We go down this carez, and as soon as we got to the other side, all hell breaks loose, right? And I want to paint the picture, because when people think of firefights, they think of, folks right next to you or right around the corner shooting, right? This was about, this was about 100 to 150 meters away from the village, because they waited till we left the village, and then they came back in, they got on the rooftops, and they started shooting at us as we were crossing this carez. So we had guys inside the carez, and then we had guys on the other side. I was on the other side, and we just essentially just turned and just started laying waste. so the guys could come out of the Berets. And I remember because I'm standing next to my 18 Bravo, my weapons specialist, and we're shooting back, and of course they're shooting at us. It's essentially a two-way range. And I looked down and dirt started flying, like dirt started kicking off like by my feet. And I remember I completely stopped shooting because I was just amazed by it. Yeah. And I just looked down on my feet. I'm like, oh man, like, this is what it feels like to be shot at. And my Bravo looks at me, he was like, hey, you fucking idiot, shoot back, right? So that was a funny moment because it was like, oh man, like it's not what you expect, right? It's like,
well, it's like, yeah, well, I mean that, and I think the sound for me was the biggest difference. I mean, we had done some ranges where we had crawled under gunfire and could hear and kind of feel the snap above your head. But, you know, like just from growing up watching movies or A-Team or whatever, you know, it's like, it's just so different, you know? And so, that first time it does kind of catch you off guard. Did you guys fuck them up at that point, or was it just kind of broke contact and bailed out?
So we just broke contact at that point, and then we made it back to base camp because by the time, like, to get all of our guys back through the Berets and go back into the village, it just didn't make any sense. We probably would have taken like a lot more casualties just because they had the high ground, and it was like it's not really feasible to go back through, and now we're trapped in the Berets. You know what I mean? We just went back, planned another op, and then went there.
Didn't call in any CAS?
No, because at that point, dude, it was fucking impossible to get CAS.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For the rest of that deployment, were there other engagements that you had where it was like no shit firefights where you're fucking guys up?
So nothing as kinetic as this next deployment, right? Because the rest of the deployment was more so of the same type of firefights because they shoot at us, we shoot at them, we get aggressive, they run, right? So that was the rest of that deployment. But the next one that we had, that we went on, we were running commandos, right? And that one was more DA heavy, kinetic, just kicking in doors and clearing entire villages and just fucking people up. Yeah. So that's my claim to fame.
Yeah. Were the two subsequent ones not as kinetic as the second deployment?
So the first deployment was not kinetic at all.
Right.
The rest of my career was all kinetic.
So 2, 3, and 4 were all pretty dicey?
Yeah. All commandos, all kinetics.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously for the sake of you needing to get out of here in the next hour for a flight, and 3 deployments worth of kinetic shoot 'em up gun stories is hours of material. If you could, using the litmus of either went exceptionally well or horribly wrong, and or are just super noteworthy or memorable in your mind, could you share some stories from those 3 deployments?
Sure.
You know, that stand out?
Sure. So the first one is a really good one that, you know, like I'm proud of, and my, you know, teammates also very proud of. And it took place in Camdash District. And just to paint, you know, the picture for you guys, so Copcading, right? For those that don't know, Copcading got overran, I want to say it was 2012. No, not 2012. It was earlier than that because we went in 2012. I can't remember exactly when Copcading got overran, but Copcading gets overran. I think it was the 173rd. They defended it. 2 Medal of Honors came out of that, if I remember correctly. They just had a movie about it too. But anyways, Copcading gets overran, and the politicians decide to abandon that area, right? Because the Taliban had completely overran that base camp and just killed a bunch of Americans and drive everybody out. And Copcading was located in a bowl surrounded by high ground all the way around it, right? So in 2012, we're running commandos out of Jalalabad, and we get a call while we're out on an actual mission. And it's the company commander. He's telling my captain, hey, get the team back to base camp right now. We need you guys to go down to Camdash because the district center is about to get overran by Taliban fighters, right? So we finish the op, we get back to JBAD, and then we go get an intel update. And that's when we found out that, hey, Kimdesh, because after Cap Katie got overran, all American forces got pulled out of that area. So it was just the militia pretty much protecting themselves from the actual Taliban. And that area is important because it's right next to the border of Pakistan. Like, it's literally like right there. So we get the intel update, from the agency folks. They're like, yep, if we don't go in there right now, that entire region is going to get fucking overran. They're going to slaughter the militia, and the people are going to get themselves, like, they're going to kill a shit ton of people. And it's not up to you guys because Hamid Karzai is telling you guys you have to go in, because at that point, the commandos were national assets. The commandos that we were running, they can go anywhere within Afghanistan based on, the president say so, right? So my captain gets, at the intel update, he's excited because as a young lieutenant, he was in the 173rd, and he was actually in that same area doing work. Like, he knows the people, he knows the land, so he's been waiting for like a revenge op just like this one, right? So we're like, all right, fuck it, let's do it. So within 2 days, we infill into Kamdesh, right? And it's weird because there's only one HLZ for that area. And the pilots didn't want to land there because they knew that the bad guys knew there was only one HLZ. So they wanted to put us on Kamdesh, like where, they wanted to put us where Cap Katie was, which is at the bottom of the bowl. And that would mean that we would have to fight up the entire fucking time we were there. And my captain was like, no, that's not happening. Yeah, they know we're there, but this is a national mission, so that means we can get all the air assets that we want. So we're going to land on the HLZ, and we'll just prep throughout the entire fucking night before we actually land, right? So we pack up 4 CH-47s, right, 150 commandos, and about 8 SF dudes with 2 combat controllers. And then 1 K9 handler, and then we infill on Kamdesh. So the way this is set up, you have upper Kamdesh, and then you have lower Kamdesh right here, and then you have Cap Katie right over here, right? So we land on the HLZ right here, that's on the high ground, and all the shitheads were in like lower Kamdesh. So it was a good call on our part because they put us in on Kamdesh himself. We were pretty much gonna be fighting uphill with all those dudes, right? So we land, we link up with the local militia. My captain knew the guy, so they, met up, high five, and then we split. We had one element go to upper Kamdesh, and then another one flank, and was, I want to say about fucking, like about 50 meters from us, all on the high ground. And we just waited, because we knew since it was nighttime, they're not going to fight us at night. But as soon as the sun comes up, that's when they're going to start fighting. And sure enough, man, as soon as day breaks, it was just fucking all hell just broke loose. And the way they were organized, like, we didn't realize they were right on top of us. Like, we heard the gunfire, but we couldn't identify them because they spent a shit ton of time prepping their positions. So what they did was they poked holes through the mud huts, and they got some standoff, and they were shooting through those holes, and to where we couldn't see their muzzle flash, right? We just heard the rounds coming in. Like, they were literally, no shit, 5 to 10 meters away, like in mud huts, just fucking engaging. So we fought them for about, like 4 days straight of just fucking going back and forth with those dudes.
Damn,
like, it was days. 4 fucking days. And the first 12 hours, we tallied like 49 EKIAs, right? So we're on upper Kamdesh, we're engaging. Finally, we saw like activities in the fucking doors in front of us. So we're like, okay, this is where they're at. They're in the buildings. So wherever there was a hole, we would just fucking lob Carl Gustavs into those buildings, and then 2 or 3 rounds. So we would have elements covering us while one of us run outside, put a round in there, and just fucking send it. And we would rotate because you can only fire like 2. Well, shit, we only fired 2 because you can go as far as 4 before your ears start bleeding.
Yeah.
Right. And then so we would rotate. Guys are covering our movement, and then we run out, lob fucking rounds into those buildings.
Yeah.
Right. And then for the ones that were a little bit lower, we would do fucking gun runs on them. Right. So we would call, because we had a shit ton of air, and then we had a shit ton of call G rounds because we had 150 commandos. So when we were leaving, we would give them each, rounds to carry. So yeah, we fought those dudes for 4 days straight. And then we spent an additional 3 days out there just going through the village and conducting SSE. So 7 days total in Kamdesh doing that firefight. When it was all said and done, I want to say it was at least 180 plus EKIAs.
Damn.
Just from those fucking 4 days of fighting.
For 4 days, were you guys getting resupplied with ammo and shit? How did you stretch that out?
So we went in heavy.
Yeah.
Because when we got the intel report as far as how many dudes were there, and again, we had 150 commandos, so we went in with our resupply. Like, we had it on the bird with us.
So how many rounds were you guys carrying a piece, ballpark?
So on our person, we had 210, and then we each had an assault bag full of ammunition.
Oh, wow.
Right? And then we had a team song that was spot on, and while all this is going on, he had hired some locals, and he got a mule, and he was making runs back to the HLZ, which was behind us, and grabbing ammunition, food, water, and taking them to the different positions.
So there's belt fed, magazine fed, and then mule fed.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
Dude, that's wild, man. And
then so we had us with our long gun and pistols and all that shit. Then the commandos had 240 Bravos with them that they carried.
Yeah.
Right. So we had just on the fucking ridge line on Upper Kamdesh, just lead being fired into Lower Kamdesh. And they, the militia told us when we came in there, they was like, look, all the good guys are right here. Everybody else that's down there, they're all fucking shitheads.
Yeah.
And we're like, perfect. So yeah, it was just, but those dudes were fucking relentless, man. Yeah. Like, we would no shit lay waste to them, and then we would watch them conduct Kazovac. So they would haul ass with a pickup truck, throw that dead on there, and then haul ass to Pakistan or wherever, and then come back with more fucking dudes.
Man.
And it was just days and days of that shit.
Yeah.
Fuck. So yeah, we ended up going back to that area for a second operation that was pretty similar, but that first one was like a fucking SF dude's wet dream. Like, I always tell people about that one because it was awesome.
Epic. Was the canine and handler American?
Yes.
Yeah. Were they SF guy? It was an SF guy?
Yeah.
Any good shit with him?
No, he was so I think we have a similar program to what you guys have where operators can become dog handlers. And we would use him just for searching purposes.
Yeah.
If we had a shithead that looked suspicious, a little bit of scare tactics here and there, I'd get him talking because they fucking hate dogs. I don't know why, dude. But we mainly use him throughout that operation for sniffing out IEDs and just getting unruly dudes that take off for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, so that was that deployment. Deployments 3 and 4. How did those shake out as far as what the big mission was, and then anything on the kind of micro?
Yeah. So again, the first one again was just commandos. The second one, not the first one, but the second one was all commandos. The third one was also commandos, and this one was more the same, just going around finding bad dudes and fucking doing work. But one mission that stood out for me the most throughout the rest of my deployments was when I almost got my face shot off. Like, I always tell people this one because a lot of people joke about their being alive day. You know what I mean? Like, they always tell that story. This one was mine. So this one is SOTF Northeast. We're working out of Gardez district at this time. Again, running commandos. And we go support this first group team that's getting ready to rip out. Rip out just means they're leaving country and coming back home, right? So we're conducting this clearing operation. And when we conduct clearing operation, like we clear the entire village. And what that looks like, if you're a fighting age male, you're coming with us. Like we don't care. Like we'll go through your house. Because what they were doing is like the dudes would hide all their guns, and as soon as we leave, they would pick them up and shoot us from behind. So we're like, that shit's not happening anymore. So when we go through, if you're a fighting age male, we establish the fucking MAM train. Everybody just walks along with us as we're clearing. So we do this, and we get to the point where it's time to strong point. Because once we get them all together, because these operations are normally 24 hours, right? So we spend 24 hours on the ground. We got up all the fighting age male, we put them in a courtyard, and then we establish security within whatever compound that we've taken. So we get done clearing this village, we're strong point, we have security. We were anticipating a fight, but it never came. So dudes are like, I guess this is a dry hole, like whatever. Let's bring out the American flag, bring out the Texas flag, and we just fucking had a big old flagpole, and we're just hanging out, sunbathing, while dudes are, drinking water, whatever, right? And we're just hanging out. My brother, my buddy and I, we're on the rooftop right next to the Mark 47. And we're standing there, and we're just bullshitting, having a conversation. And I turn and look at him, like he's like right across from me. I can't remember the actual distance, but like he's like right there, and I'm speaking to him, and all I heard was like, I can hear the rounds going in between us. Wow. Like all I hear was, phew, and it's a very distinctive fucking sound. Like I heard the rounds, and it was like in slow motion. I turned my head, and I see it hit a pile of water bottles that we had right there, and the water bottles just exploded. And I'm like, fuck. And at that point, we don't have helmets on. I don't have my plates on. Like we're just hanging out because the fight that we were expecting, because as soon as the sun comes up, they typically engage because they don't have NVGs like we do, right? So we're like, man, this is like noon, and like there's no action whatsoever. So as soon as the rounds come in between us, I just jump off the fucking building, right? Because there's no cover up there whatsoever. And so the rounds some rounds hit the water bottle, and then the rest of the rounds hit. There was a first group guy that was standing right in between us, but off to the distance. The round hit his scar heavy and went into his bicep.
Jeez.
So we're like, fuck. So we jump off. My buddy jumps off. We put all our kit on, and then we just started fucking doing work. When we strong point, since we have so many commandos, we always bring all the heavy weapons. We bring the tripods, and we bring empty sandbags. So as soon as we stop, E-tools come out, the commandos fill up the sandbags, and we build 45 positions. And we put them all on tripods and all that shit. So, but the fire was so heavy to where we couldn't get to the weapon systems. Right, because they were shooting at those weapon systems, thinking that there were guys there. So we were all like on the roofs, just fucking on our bellies, just engaging as much as we can. And then we had to pull the weapon systems down and maneuver them to get to a point where we can actually like effectively engage them with that, because there was still some standoff between them. Wow. But I always tell that story because till this day, I'm like, man, like this hat, I always like. Since 2010, I've always worn it on deployments.
Really?
And I always credit it to my lucky hat.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I'm like, man, I was wearing this hat when my face almost got shot off, right? Yeah. If I fucking didn't have it on, I'd probably be dead. But I remember that day because it speaks back to what I said at the very beginning, to where when it's your time to go, you're going to go. Yeah. Because had that been just a couple of inches over, my entire face would have been gone. Yeah. And I probably would be fucking dead. Man. So, yeah.
That's dicey for sure. Did you guys end up ultimately getting the upper hand?
Oh, yeah. So what we did was, two commandos got hurt that particular firefight, right? So we had Call Gs with us. We had the Mark 47s. We eventually found where they were shooting at us from, and we just saturated that entire area to where once the fighting stops, we, grabbed commandos. We went out to that site, and no shit, just a bunch of fucking shitheads just burnt up from all those fucking rounds. Yeah.
Do you remember what Carl Gustav rounds you were using? Was it a mix or was it all just the HEDP?
It was HEDP.
Yeah,
HEDP.
The nasty dual tip.
Oh yeah. I love those.
Who doesn't love the dual penetration? Going back to the porn days, right? So for the rest of that deployment, all similar missions?
Similar engagements, yeah, because the commando mission, for those that don't know, like they were essentially the Ranger equivalent for the Afghan army.
Yeah.
Like they were a strike force, fast and lethal. And I want to say they rotate the elements that would work with them, whether it's SEAL teams or SF dudes. Yeah.
Did you get along with all those guys fairly well?
We did, man, because one of the things that I always, like my team has always done and the leaders have always beat into us was at the end of the day, like treat everybody like they're men and you won't have a problem.
Well, plus, fuck, it's their country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah.
To me, the dicey part would be when you see am I saying this right? Green on blue?
Yeah.
Blue on green? I can't remember. But yeah, where Afghani soldiers turn on the American troops who are training them, because it happened a number of times, and to me, like if that happens once, like now you're constantly going to be like, is this motherfucker about to mudsuck us or,
So doing that same deployment, there was an incident that I'll share with you. So there was 2 ODAs on that specific site conducting the same mission. They had their commandos, we had ours, right? And my ODA is always, like I was probably the biggest dude on my team. Everybody else was just your typical, like very humble, very respectful. Like we treated them like men.
5'10", 180.
Yeah. Just your typical, dudes, right?
Yeah.
Nothing crazy.
Yeah.
And then you had this other ODA, just a bunch of fucking dickheads. And they know I don't like them. You know what I mean? And we did not get along being on that site.
Yeah, this is American ODA.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, this was other SF dudes. We did not get along. And they knew it, right? But they treated their dudes like shit, man. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we never got along, right? Fast forward, we're in the little NWR that I built for my team. And we're like, I'm in there watching a movie, just hanging out. And we hear this loud fucking explosion. Dang. We're like, oh, fuck, we're taking IDF. That's where my thought went, right? Fuck, we're taking IDF, ruining my fucking movie. I'm watching fucking Predator, like what the fuck, right? So we run out, we get all that shit on, and the medic from the other ODA calls over, and he's looking for my team's medic. He was like, hey, we need another medic, and he takes off, right? Come to find out, somebody that works on base camp that those guys were treating like shit found a way to put a fucking IED in that team's toilet.
Oh, man.
And blew up their fucking Bravo.
Did it kill anybody?
It didn't kill him, but it fucked him up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So same guy that we walk past every day that we make sure we gave the fucking greeting of the day to, like, hey man, how you doing?
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah.
Like we treated them like fucking people, and they had no reason, because we're literally like we use the same kitchen, like we're on the same base camp, but for whatever reason, he put an IED over there instead of where we were. How he got it in there, I don't fucking know, right? Yeah. But it just goes to show, when you treat people like shit, like if they want to fucking hurt you, they're going to hurt you, especially in a country where you're working with partner forces.
Yeah. There's always a level of diciness there, I think, that's inescapable. But did you guys ever train combatives with those guys? Did you ever grapple with them or box with them or anything like that?
No. It was mostly just range work. Yeah.
To me, that'd be a good way to help build that. I mean, to me, there's nothing like fighting, fist fighting, grappling, whatever to help, secure or make that bond. But
now maybe they did, because by the time we got to them, they were fully trained in operation.
Oh, I got you.
So maybe in the schoolhouse at Camp Moorhead.
Yeah,
maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah. All right. So I guess moving on to your third deployment, or fourth deployment, but third Kinetic deployment. 2 things. One, did any operations, and I guess even with the prior ones to that, and including the last, did any operations go horribly wrong? And also, are there any stories that you can share that you haven't shared before?
So as far as horribly wrong, not really, to be honest with you, man. Like there's been situations where we're like, ooh, that's a close call, but it's like we always plan for them in contingencies.
Yeah.
So we didn't really see them as going horribly wrong.
Bases covered.
Yeah, for the most part. And as far as, I guess this one I'll share, but it's not what you're expecting. This is, till this day, like I always say, this is my hardest deployment, because as I'm going through this, of course, I'm getting promoted, right? Mm-hmm. And this one, I always say, is my hardest deployment as a team sergeant. I don't know what you guys call it in the SEAL teams, but the most senior enlisted guy, right?
The platoon chief.
Yes. So at this point, I'm an E8 and I have my group of fucking goons, right? Like we're just full of piss and vinegar, ready to fuck shit up. But this is 2019. Like Afghanistan is winding down, Syria's a thing, and we end up going to a non-permissive or a very permissive country like Jordan, and we do 6 months there. And I always joke around and say that that was my hardest deployment, because in a place like Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, like I know what the routine is. I know what to do. I know what to expect, right? Guys prep for mission, guys go out, they do work, they come back, that's it, right? I can plan for. But you put a group of dudes in a permissive area like Jordan to where they could come and go as they please. They can fucking go into the local economy. They can go drink. They can drive. They can do all this fucked up shit. That kept me up at night. And that was my hardest deployment till this day, because I was such a fucking worry whore. I was like, oh man, are my guys going to go, beat up Jordanian dudes? Or are they going to go to the bar and fucking, grab a chick and do dumb shit? You know what I mean? Yeah. But till this day, like I always tell folks, like, yes, SF guys, put them in a combat area, or any one of us, you know exactly what to expect. Yeah. But you put us in fucking Spain or some other place.
Yeah. Idle hands.
I was like, that's when shit gets real. But that was my last deployment, and probably my hardest and my best ones, because I had a chance to do a lot of mentoring and a lot of coaching and a lot of development of those younger guys to make sure they were successful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Obviously, that was the last one. You end up, what was the deciding moment or defining moment of you deciding to get out?
So I got done with my team sergeant time, and I go to the schoolhouse. Now I'm a first sergeant overseeing one of the specialty companies, and I'm sitting there and I'm craving battle. Like I'm craving war, right? Because once you, at least for us, once you get done with your team sergeant time, like that's it. Everything tactical, like, is done.
Yeah.
Like going forward, it's all bitch work. It's all paperwork. And I'm like, I do not like this first sergeant shit at all. Like, I don't like it. So I go to CIA.gov and I start filling out the fucking paperwork, right? I'm like, man, like there's got to be more out there. So I go through that process. They send me the little packet and everything. And I'm going through that process, and then it just hit me like, dude, you're a selfish piece of shit. Like, my son is 4 at that point. My daughter's 1. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, 20 years, you've been doing whatever you wanted to do. And now that you have a chance, the government's going to pay you to wake up and do nothing. Here you are wanting to go right back to what you love doing, right? Mm-hmm. So after sitting there for a while, I was like, you know what? Like, this is, like, I got to prioritize my family. I got to prioritize my kids. I don't want them to get to the point where they don't know who I am, or they don't respect me, or they don't want me around. Yeah. That to me was scary. I was like, I want my kids to want to come around when I'm 80. You know what I mean? And that's when I made the decision, man, because the Army, I could have kept going and made higher ranks, but it was all just bitch work, just useless work. And going toward the agency was going to take me away from my family. I wouldn't get to see my kids nor enjoy them. So that's when I made the decision, man, to call it quits. And just retire. And as soon as I made that decision, regret, because I'm like, fuck, like I miss the camaraderie. I miss, the uniform. Like, I missed all of it. But I just had to feel something else to, I just had to find something else to fill that void.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough but understandable, and to me, I think you absolutely made the right choice. I mean, I think one of the biggest problems our country faces is lack of fathers' involvement in their families, and just the lack of the nuclear family. I mean, that's the flagship backbone of what makes any country great. Is having strong families that lay a solid foundation for good, productive members of society, and there's a serious lack of that. Switching a little bit of gears, we'll talk about, or I guess I'm curious, at what point did you meet your wife and get married throughout your career process?
Right. So my first marriage.
Oh, one of those guys. Yeah. Welcome to the club.
That didn't work out too well because my first wife, we got married when I was 20, right? By the time I figured out who I was as a man, got into special operation, that shit wasn't working out, right? I was a completely different person. And I always tell people this, you don't know who you are till you're about 25-ish. Yeah. You know what I mean? You don't know what you like. You don't even know what 40.
60, fuck, I don't know. Yeah. I'm still figuring that out.
But either way, I don't recommend getting married young, right? Like if you're one of those rare breeds that still with your high school sweetheart, fucking hats off to you, right? So we get a divorce, and then my current wife and I met in 2012 as I was in the midst of running commandos and running and gunning and doing all this horrible shit to people. Yeah. And I didn't want anything to do with like relationships or any of that stuff because I was fresh out of my first divorce. And I told her like
not
this,
looking for it.
Yeah. But she stuck around, man. I put her through the ringer. She's got war wounds and everything to fucking prove it. And I'm like, okay, she's worth keeping around.
Yeah.
So
as far as the I guess from an upbringing standpoint, the component of being from Haiti, having that be, a big part of who you are, seeing what's going on there now, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so it's heartbreaking, right? Because again, just being from there, I still have, not immediate family there, but my mom and dad, their families are still there, right? So just the other day, I spoke with my mom and just asked her how everybody was doing. And it's horrible because the entire country is on lockdown. They can't really go outside without, being beaten or being scared, robbed. So it's horrible living over there. And being where I'm at now, all I want to do is help, right? Like it's I have that burning feeling like in my heart to try to help. How I know how to help, which probably wouldn't be helpful, right? I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, for sure.
Because I'm thinking like, holy shit, like I can get some boys together. I can go fucking establish security. I can make this place fucking safe, right? But I also have to talk myself out of that because it's like, hey, you got out of this for a reason.
Yeah.
Like you got a baseball game to go to, like focus, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's horrible what's going on right now. And hopefully, from what I understand, the guy just resigned, so hopefully things should be getting back to normal here pretty soon once the people actually have somebody that they want in power.
Yeah.
And hopefully the country could fucking turn itself around because it's heartbreaking to watch.
Well, it is. I mean, because I saw a video off of X that this Haitian guy was being interviewed, and there's tire fires and shit all around him, and sitting there talking, and then all of a sudden he reaches down into the fire, pulls out a charred human leg, yanks a fucking chunk of meat out of it, and starts eating it while he's being interviewed. And like they call him barbecue or something like he's the head fucking dude right now. He's like, I mean, he's fucking barbecuing his enemies and eating them on live or on TV. Like, holy fuck, that's the guy that's going to be running the show.
Hopefully not. That's fucking barbaric, but. I would say this though, like hopefully they get the right person in place, right? Somebody that's gonna unite all these different fucking gangs.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you look at a guy like that, and I'm not defending him, but you look at him, you're like, okay, like this dude fearless, like whatever you want to call them, there's probably a place for him somewhere within the military. Because at the end of the day, he's got like, whichever gang he runs, he has people that follows him. And I would almost go as far as to say, like, all those folks that are fighting, that are within the gangs, find a way. The only way you're going to stop this is if you find a way to legitimize those fucking dudes. Because as soon as you shunt them and push them away to the side, all they're going to do is just cause problems.
Yeah.
Right? And I would use this example, right? Mujahideen, back in the late 1980s, when we equipped them to fight the fucking Russians, right? They defeated the Russians, and then we left them to their own demise. We didn't employ them. We didn't give them a purpose. It'll be the same thing. Like, you got to find somewhere or something for those gang members to do.
Yeah.
You know they fight. You know they love fighting. Find someone that's strong enough that's going to organize them and put them to work.
What do you think the fix is there, and do you think America should play any role in it?
I don't think the U.S. should play any role in it. I don't think the U.S. should play any role in any other people's conflicts, right?
I agree.
Yeah, I think we need to focus on our own issues that we have here and let them figure out their problems.
Agreed.
Right? Because we started mingling back in the 1990s with Aristide and all that shit, and look at where it's at now.
I mean, look at any place that we've done that with. To me, the last time we did that successfully was World War II for sure. You could argue Vietnam at this point is better off than it was before, but it took a long fucking time to get there.
Yeah.
Since Vietnam, nothing. I mean, every place we've meddled in is fucking worse than it was before we showed up. Which kind of on that same vein, when you saw the evacuation and pull out of Afghanistan, how did that set with you?
It didn't sit good at all, man. That shit broke my heart, because when you have spent as much time as we have in a country like Afghanistan, like, and you get to know the people there, and you, like, I have friends that are there, friends that kept me and my buddies alive. Yeah. Interpreters, fucking commandos, like guys that we've literally run and gun with just to turn around and fucking abandon them like we did. It felt like I felt like the guys felt at Vietnam when the Martin Yards were fucking left behind. Yeah. Like, that's how I felt. Like, I was embarrassed, because it's like, man, this is how we treat our allies. And because, again, there's going to be other conflicts where we're going to be relying on people to help us. And they're going to look back at that incident and they're going to be like, no fucking way. Yeah. Like, you've done this over and over again. And it didn't have to go that way. Mm-hmm. Like, there's other things we could have done to make sure that it was a smooth, pull out of that country. Yeah. But to watch people fall from fucking airplanes,
crazy,
dude. It was definitely a fucking black eye and an embarrassment, not only to the country but to the military.
Yeah, agreed. Can you say something in Creole real quick that's like super that sounding, if that makes sense?
Sac passe.
What does that mean?
That means what's up.
Oh yeah.
And then true Haitians will come back with "Naboule." Yeah, that's like saying, "Yeah, we're good." Yeah.
Do you still speak it much with family members, or
my mom and dad? Yeah, every time.
Like, that's all you speak.
Yeah. Even though they speak English, it's just one of those things. It's like a respect thing. Yeah. I mean, I just speak it to them every time I call them.
Yeah. Do you keep in touch with them pretty close?
Yeah. They're we all moved out of New York City. Yeah. Yeah. I'll go visit, but I'll never live in New York, right? But now they live in Georgia,
cool.
Right up the road from us, or right down the road from us. And we get to see them on the regular, speak with them on the regular.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So I want to ask kind of what now and what moving forward. And also I saw a cool video you posted about the lack of like military role models in inner cities for, because when you look at the disparity or lack of diversity within special operation communities, one of the things that I love what you talked about is a big part of it just being inner city youth don't see special operations guys in their communities or as role models. They see professional athletes, and that needs to change. Is that something that you're passionate about moving forward, and can you speak to that a little bit?
Of course. So once I retired, one of the things that I've always loved to do, especially when I had my team or when I have soldiers that work for me is I always reframe my mind to think of, hey, this is somebody's son, this is somebody's daughters, right? So I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure I, provide good mentorship, good coaching, and just treat them as if they were my own. But once I left the military, like I got so used to doing it, and I loved doing it to where I wanted to find a way to keep doing it. And I wanted to still stay within the military community. And I'm sure you can relate, but when we joined the military, there was no social media. There was no Vietnam guys or Desert Storm guys that are out here talking about their experiences and sharing what they went through to make sure that we don't repeat the same thing, to make sure we don't repeat the same mistakes. So I started on YouTube with the intention of, bettering the next generation of soldiers just by sharing my personal mistakes, my downfalls, and sharing what I went through, to hopefully, motivate them to join, but also if they do join, to make sure they don't make those same mistakes, right? And while I was in the service, especially special operations, I noticed there's not a lot of minorities there. Granted, I didn't really give a shit because at that point I was so laser focused on taking it to the enemy. And really, once you get to that point in your career where you're operating at that level, it doesn't matter. You don't care, right? But I know what it's done for me as a kid from Haiti, as a kid from Brooklyn. And I'm like, man, the same thing could be done for some of these kids that are in those same areas. But why did I not discover it earlier on, right? Had I known, I probably would have went straight in on the 18 X-ray contract, right? But the more I looked at it, the more I'm like, holy shit, like growing up in that area, what did I have access to? Sports, right? To me, it was basketball, Michael Jordan, right? My email, fucking Michael Jordan, 2-3. Then it was rap music. Then it was, all these entertainers. So I'm like, that's what we're exposed to in the inner cities, right? So naturally, a lot of kids from those cities gravitate towards that because that's what they see. That's what they idolize. That's what they want to be like. Yeah. The drug dealer in the corner. That's what they see. That's who has the nice cars, the money, the girls. So they want to be that, right? As opposed to if they saw something else, they would be like, holy shit, not everybody has to be a drug dealer. I like guns. I like shooting. I can go in the Army and do that and still get accolades, right? Instead of fucking going to jail and, being part of the government in that way, I can be part of the government in this aspect instead, right?
Well, and doing things that people are proud of you for, So I think that's a big part of the feeling of fulfillment and purpose. Like if you're doing things that the people that you care about are proud of you for doing, that's usually a pretty good litmus that you're on the right track.
Correct.
Unless you're surrounded by fucking cult members or whatever. But yeah, I mean, and I think that's an important thing that is also missing. Is kids striving to do things that are going to make the people they care about proud.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. And I chopped it up to exposure. Like these guys don't see someone that looks like them doing the job. Yeah. And I get it, right? There's always going to be that rebuttal of, if they really wanted it, they would find it. Or it's out there. It's exposed to everybody. And I'm like, not really. Like I joined the military because, my brother was already in. So that's how I got exposed to it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So since I've been on here, and I only know this because of the feedback that I'm getting now that I'm on here doing this, right? Yeah. It's on the regular, I'm getting, Instagram and email messages like, hey, thank you. Now that I see you, I know it's possible. Yeah. Or, hey, I'm Haitian and I want to be SF too.
That's awesome.
So I'm getting a lot of those and I'm holding mentorship calls to help guide those kids through that process. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because they do want to do it. They just don't know the how, right? Now we have to show them how to do it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Love to hear it. That's fantastic. So is that kind of moving forward? What's your 1, 3, 5, 10-year plan?
Yeah. So as of right now, my intent is to stay on YouTube and just teach, coach, mentor the next generation of soft guys for as long as they're willing to listen. Yeah. Because I hate it when people blame all these different things on special operations. Like, it's not like being a special forces guy or being a Navy SEAL, being a combat controller, being a PJ. It's just a job. It's not your identity. So to say that, because of special operations, I'm divorced, or because of special operations, I'm X, Y, and Z. I'm like, dude, check it out. I learned this after my first divorce, right? When I'm deployed, I'm deployed. But when I'm home, I need to work at my marriage just as much as I worked on my deployments, right? Because if I don't, if not more, because if I don't, it's going to go to shit, right? It's something that you have to work on, right? It's just a job. It's not your identity. The PTSD is going to come from it, but there's things that you can do to fix that also.
Yeah. Well, and I think, the identity thing is or can be tricky in that, when especially in special operations, I think, but I would say for the military, it is an identity while you're doing it, because it's not just a job. Yeah. I mean, yes, it's a job, but it's so all-encompassing that it becomes your identity, and the more special you become in these units, the more it becomes a part of your identity. The longer you do it, the more so. And so I think that's where most people trip up as they get out, is not being able to rationalize and detach from that identity in a positive and healthy manner. It doesn't mean that you turn your back on it or you forget, whitewash, your memory of it, but it does mean that you move past it and become something else. And I think when people refuse to do that, that's when they run into a lot of trouble and they get depressed and turn to the bottle or pills or whatever. But
I agree 100%.
Man, it's been awesome talking to you. Your story is nothing short of inspirational, fascinating. There's a million cultural questions it makes me want to ask, but I know we got to get you out of here for a flight to do. And one thing I want to say, a lot of guests bring me coins. They're all spectacular, appreciated. The one that you brought is, I think, the biggest one there. It's right center at the very bottom. Awesome coin, a Green Beret coin that is a spectacular part of the collection. Thank you very much. And
anytime,
in kind, I have a normal size coin for you, but also something in the box there that hopefully if you throw on your shit kickers in North Carolina, you can,
shit.
So you're part of the Mic Drop family, Mike. Now.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. So this is awesome.
Should you rock that with a pair of shit kickers, I'd love to get a picture and post it if
I got you. I got you, Mike. I'll make sure you get one.
Yeah, hey. Awesome.
I appreciate you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
And thanks to John Johnston and Champion Choice Silver for providing those buckles.
This is awesome.
For the listeners, I hope you're as inspired as I am listening to Jay talk and hear his story. It's amazing. It's, to me, kind of the textbook, consummate example of the American dream, and I'm super proud of you and honored to have you on the show.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks.
I appreciate you.
Thank you for coming. Hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, fucking choke yourself. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.